Welcome back to Crime Scene X. Today's video will cover 3 disturbing highway horror stories. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe for daily horror stories. I was driving down a deserted stretch of highway, a barren ribbon of asphalt cutting through a sea of fields. It was a little past midnight, and the atmosphere felt heavier than usual. My sedan's dashboard clock read 11:34 p.m., its dim light barely competing with the glow of the full moon. Then the glitches started. The speedometer needle twitched erratically. The dashboard lights flickered. Telling myself it was just my tired mind playing tricks, I continued driving until the engine began to sputter. I watched powerless as the needle on my fuel gauge dropped to E. I had just enough momentum to coast to the side of the road. The car was officially dead. To make matters worse, my phone displayed no service. Fantastic. As I was debating whether to walk or wait for a passerby, I saw headlights approaching. A sense of relief washed over me as an old pickup truck pulled over behind me. The truck itself had seen better days, rusted in parts, layered with grime. The driver, a middle-aged man wearing a baseball cap and dirty overalls, got out. "Need help?" he asked, his voice sounding as rough as he looked. "Yeah, my car's out of gas. I must have miscalculated," I said, slightly embarrassed. "Got a gas can in the back. Let's get you refueled." He retrieved a red gas can from his truck bed and poured the fuel into my tank. As he was screwing the cap back on, I felt my gut instinct kick in. Something about him made me uneasy. "There's a station about 5 miles up. Follow me," he suggested, gesturing to his truck. I hesitated, but realized I had little choice. "All right, lead the way." We got back into our respective vehicles. My car started up with the new fuel, and I felt a sense of temporary relief. He pulled onto the highway and I followed. His taillights were my guiding stars in the pitch-black night. After a few minutes, I noticed something odd. The road signs seemed to indicate we were heading away from known towns and toward an area I'd never heard of. My sense of unease grew, further amplified by a foul smell wafting through my open window. It was faint but unmistakable, like rotting meat. I considered turning around but feared he might follow me. And then what? As if reading my thoughts, he suddenly veered off onto an unmarked dirt road leading to an old, dilapidated building that looked like an abandoned service station. He parked his truck and got out. "Here we are," he said, a strange smile crossing his face. This was it. My gut screamed at me that something was terribly wrong. I couldn't go wherever this man intended to lead me. Feigning a smile, I said, "You know what? I think I can make it to the station from here. Thank you for the gas." "Are you sure?" He looked visibly upset. "We're right here." "Yeah, I'm sure. Thanks again," I insisted. As he unhitched the gas can from my car, I seized the opportunity. The moment he stepped away, I slammed my foot on the gas pedal. My tires spun for a moment, showering him with gravel, before gaining traction. I sped back onto the highway without looking back, heart pounding in my chest. I didn't stop driving until I reached a well-lit gas station in a familiar town. There, I finally allowed myself to breathe, my hands shaking as I filled up my tank. Days later, I read about a string of disappearances happening in the area where I'd been. The details were sparse, but the general location matched that dilapidated service station. Though they hadn't caught anyone yet, the incidents were believed to be linked. Now, every time I pass an empty stretch of road, I can't help but think about that night. It was a normal Friday evening, and I was driving home after a long week at work. The monotony of the drive was broken only by the occasional passing car. The familiarity of the road offered little excitement, but tonight felt different. My radio had lost signal halfway through the journey, which was strange because this route usually had good coverage. All I could hear was static, the noise growing increasingly chaotic, almost mocking the silence. I glanced down to fiddle with the radio, and when I looked up, I saw it. A deer frozen in my headlights. I slammed on the brakes, my heart racing as the car screeched to a halt. The deer leapt into the woods, disappearing into the night. My pulse still pounding, I took a deep breath and continued driving. That's when I noticed my rearview mirror was no longer just a frame of the road behind me. A truck had appeared, driving closely, its headlights uncomfortably bright. I could barely make out the driver, a silhouette against the glare of the lights. I sped up, hoping to create distance, but the truck sped up too, maintaining its closeness. A cold wave of dread washed over me. I thought about pulling over to let the truck pass, but something told me that wasn't a good idea. Then the truck flashed its high beams. My car was flooded with light so intense it was blinding. For a second I couldn't see anything, and I gripped the wheel tightly, praying I'd stay on the road. When the lights dimmed, my eyes readjusted, and I took the first exit off the highway, hoping to lose the truck on local roads. As I turned, so did the truck. It was following me. There was no doubt now. My heart pounded in my chest as I navigated the dark, winding roads, tall trees lining both sides. I floored the accelerator, my car lurching forward, but the truck kept pace, still tailing me closely. Up ahead, I saw the old bridge that crossed a deep gorge. It was narrow, barely enough room for two cars side by side. An idea flashed into my mind, a risky one, but my options were limited. As I neared the bridge, I slammed on my brakes, skidding to a stop just before the entrance. The truck driver, caught off guard, swerved and braked hard, stopping parallel to my car. Seizing the moment, I reversed back onto the road and gunned the engine, speeding across the bridge before the truck could correct its position. The narrowness of the bridge forced the driver to reverse back out before he could pursue me. I didn't wait to see if he followed. When I finally reached the populated areas of my town, I drove directly to the police station. The truck was nowhere in sight. After giving my statement and description of the events, the officers advised me to be cautious and said they'd keep an eye on the area. For weeks afterward, I couldn't shake the fear that I was being watched. I changed my route home, varied my schedule, became more vigilant. Though nothing happened since that night, the experience left me deeply unsettled. One day, while reading the local news, a story caught my eye. An arrest had been made. A man driving a truck had been apprehended for stalking several people on the highway. I looked at the photo accompanying the article. It was the same make and model as the truck that had followed me. The highway was a monochrome ribbon unspooling under the harsh glow of my car's headlights. It was just past midnight, and I was eager to get home after a long shift at the hospital. Normally, I'd find the solitude calming, a space to decompress after the frenetic pace of the emergency room. But tonight, the isolation felt heavy, almost suffocating. My gaslight flicked on. I cursed softly. In my haste to leave work, I'd forgotten to refuel. I calculated the distance to the nearest station in my head. I'd have to go on fumes. As I navigated through the inky darkness, I noticed a pair of headlights approaching rapidly from behind. Within moments, the car was tailgating me so closely that I could no longer see its headlights in my rearview mirror, just the unsettling glow illuminating my car's interior. I felt a jolt of irritation mixed with a prickle of fear. I tapped my brakes to signal them to back off. Instead, the car pulled into the opposite lane and accelerated, drawing level with me. The driver rolled down his window, gesturing for me to do the same. Against my better judgment, I lowered my window a few inches, just enough to hear what he had to say. "Your back tire is really low," he yelled over the roar of the engines. "Looks like it could blow any second." Alarm replaced my initial annoyance. A blown tire at this speed could be disastrous. I nodded my thanks and began to slow down, looking for a place to pull over. I found a clearing by the side of the road and parked, my hazards blinking into the void. I got out, keeping one eye on the stranger's car, which had also pulled over a short distance behind me. The man got out, holding a flashlight. He shined it on my rear tire, confirming it was indeed low, though not catastrophically so. "I've got a compressor in the trunk," he offered, already walking toward his car. Though uneasy, I felt it would be ungrateful to decline. He returned with the compressor and set to work inflating the tire. As he did, his flashlight fell, briefly illuminating the interior of his car. My eyes were immediately drawn to something odd, a large roll of what looked like plastic sheeting, and beside it, a spool of rope. Alarm bells rang in my head. I thanked him quickly, saying I could handle it from here. I saw his expression change, but he simply nodded and walked back to his car. As soon as he was inside, I jumped into my car and floored the accelerator. My low tire protested with a high-pitched whine, but it held. I glanced in my rearview mirror. He was following me, and he was gaining fast. I pushed my car to its limit, winding through the forest road with reckless abandon. Just as I thought my tire was going to give, I saw it. a narrow dirt track branching off the main road, hidden behind a copse of trees. I swerved onto it and killed my lights, plunging myself into darkness. I waited, breathless. Moments later, his car sped past. Only when his taillights had disappeared did I dare to move. I took the long way home, avoiding the highway, my hands shaking on the wheel. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please like the video, comment what you thought, and subscribe for daily uploads.